State. So we might as well transition right there because Florida State's late to the transfer portal party. And that is one of the guys out there that at least I've seen that Florida State seems to have some interest in. Again, it's Keandre Lambert-Smith, everyone, Penn State wide receiver, caught 53 balls last year, 4 touchdowns. C.J. West is a defensive lineman from Kent State who has a long list of Power 5 visits coming up. I've seen that name. And now I'm drawing a blank on anyone else that may be connected to FSU.
You're talking about the wide receiver position, just in general.
Just in general.
Simeon Barrow, D tackle. That's you have a couple linebackers. I mean, right now they've got the guys that they have an idea of. There'll be more people entering the portal here coming up soon. But one, I know I'm not going to use your platform to bash people, but I do know that a lot of people have used this portal, the spring portal, as the boogeyman. I mean, Josh Pate said this is going to be one of the most crazy, and not just Josh Pate, those other ones said that too. It's going to be the craziest spring portal we've ever seen. Not crazy at all. Like, what was crazy? Now, won't lie. Saban retiring made winter a lot crazier than what we thought, as well as Harbaugh leaving to go to the NFL for Michigan State. But I think at a certain point, we're going to have to adapt to the new norm, and people got to stop being afraid. But if you don't get what you need to get in the fall, in that winter portal, this spring portal, looking for that Keon Coleman is really trying to catch lightning in a barrel. But I always express to Florida State fans, don't be like how I don't know how you got. George is younger, you're a little older than me, Mark. But I remember when I was in elementary school, the new girl that transferred in was always prettier than the girls that were already there. And the reality is the girls that are there, that new girl ain't no more pretty. She might be ugly or she's just new. You didn't come up with her. You don't know anything about her. So everything in the portal that, just comes from a P5, like I've yet to see anybody just say, you know what? I need a Penn State wide receiver. Like, let me get this Penn State. Penn State really dials it up. Like, it just throws the ball very good. Now, if you told me some Ohio State guys at the portal, all right, man, they got to do a pretty good job over there with recruiting wide receivers. So I think a lot of FSU fans are just in this thing where I don't think we even know how to be happy winning. And I'm not satisfied with anything, but like at least I'm looking for upgrades. Like, perfect example, right now I got a brand new TV. Mark, I went and bought me a 70, too big for my room, but I'm going to figure it out. I bought a 75-inch TV. I went from a 55-inch, gave them 55-inch to my grandma, 75-inch. I wasn't like, I got to have a brand new, in order for me to be fulfilled in life, I got to get a new TV. No, I went, found a good deal, said, this is pretty all right. I'll buy this. I can afford it. Let's move forward. Like, that's how you're supposed to be when you're winning. We're winning, but we're like, oh, our offensive line stinks because of a scrimmage that we don't have any that most fans don't have any context in it. If our offense ran for 400 yards on our D line, on our defense, then I would be very concerned. If our wide receivers demolished our DBs, I'd be concerned. If our DBs just made our wide receivers not do anything, I'd be concerned. If our D-line just destroyed and folded up our O-line, I'd be concerned. But what we saw was what happens when iron sharpens iron. You saw big plays, but you saw a lot of stalemates. You saw plays to be made on both sides of the ball. And I think that's what constitutes a very good team. Now, do we have a Peter Warrick at wide receiver or E.G. Green or Kez McCormick? I don't think so yet. But do I think Malik Benson could be that? Sure. We'll know more once the games get played. But I do know this. Our secondary is really, really good. And they consistently shut it down, but there were plays to be made by a bunch of guys. So I don't need us to go get 10 guys out of the portal. We're not which is ironic that we were bashed so much for using the portal. But when you look at some of our rivals, they're requesting 2 running backs out of the portal, another quarterback, 2 wide receivers. And I'm like, y'all went from telling us about high school development to saying you dang near need a brand new team in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly get the indication that about 75 to 80% of these guys in the portal were pushed or nudged out the door by their coaching staffs because they're guys that have, had one start last year or played special teams, had 6 tackles. Those sorts of numbers are pretty common from these guys. But there's been 8 or 10 guys that are obviously star players that can play anywhere, and a couple of them have already been taken. And so we shall see what Florida State is able to do in the transfer portal and how much they want to make a move there. But it is funny that Mike Norvell would take criticism on one end of the spectrum, then the next offseason take some criticism and some heat from his fan base on the other end of the spectrum for not being aggressive enough in the transfer portal. Well, if you do it right, then a year later, or if you take them right out of high school, 3 or 4 years later, they show up at the NFL draft. And that's what we're going to take in starting on Thursday night. This is my favorite off the field event in sports, the NFL draft. Love it. Cannot get enough of it. My blessed mom, she did the best she could, and I have no complaints with the way mom raised me, and especially since there was a time, believe it or not, when the NFL draft was during the week. It was like on a Tuesday afternoon when ESPN first opened. Like I'm talking 1979, 80, 81. Mom would let me stay home and watch the NFL draft. Skip school, stay home, watch the NFL draft. It's like
That's
a
a good
10-year-old.
That's a solid mom.
Yeah, she would be your perfect attendance otherwise. Your grades are in line. Hey, stay home. I have no idea what this is, what you're making such a big deal about. It doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever, stay home.
Your mom, my mom could have taken lessons from your mom. It sounds like me begging to stay up for those Monday night Raws
Yes.
before school the next
That's
morning
even
every once in a while. Well, it's like my bedtime was worked out. I had it worked out. Okay, you can stay up till 10 to watch Raw, but every once in a while, Stone Cold shows up with The Rock on a regular Monday night show, and it goes till 10:30. She'd be like, okay, 10 o'clock, go to bed. So thankfully my stepdad was around every once in a while. I'd be like, let the kid watch Stone Cold. They're throwing beers out of out of the stands. Come on. But I digress. No, the draft is huge. Going to be a lot of fun. Going into this thing, the Knowles just absolutely destroyed the combine. And the closer and closer we get to the draft, guys just moving up the board. I think there's 7 guys that could possibly go, in the top 100 picks in the draft, according to Power Football Focus and stuff like that. But, you got Jared Verse, who's a consensus first round pick. Braden Fisk, who I was lucky enough to meet at the spring game this weekend, he's slowly but surely working his way in there. Jerrion Jones, looking at being a second round pick. Keon Coleman, lost a little bit with his running as opposed to a Jerrion who, shot up the board, but he's still going to be somewhere in there, second, third round pick, if I had to guess. Fabian Lovett, you go across the board. I believe it's 17 guys we have that are eligible overall. A dozen invited to the combine. You got a guy like Akeem Dent, who's taken several top 30 NFL visits, who didn't even get, invited to the combine. He ends up running a sub 4.40 at his pro day. It's a pretty beautiful thing. I don't think I mentioned Renardo Green, another guy who's going to be a second, again, third round pick, in my opinion, just a beast at cornerback. But yeah, I could go on and on. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's been a long time since Florida State has had this many guys in the draft. You go back to that, I believe it was the 2012 draft was the first one, but 3 drafts in a row. Jimbo Fisher had, I believe it was 12 guys, then 8, then another 12, something like that. He ends up breaking the record, 3-year record for Florida State, 29 guys drafted. Florida State, Mike Norvell, kind of like what James is alluding to, people being upset and complaining with what's going on. He's on track to have a shot to break that thing. We'll see how many guys get drafted this year, but know there's going to be at least 5+ next year, and who knows, we could get into 30+ guys here in the next 3 years. So really excited to just get it started, see who goes first round and go from there.